Everyone, welcome back to my channel. So I'm going to go through everything that I read in January. I didn't read too much. It was kind of a weird month again. I read a lot of audiobooks, more than I care to admit, but I will be admitting. I was away for 2 weeks in January, so that's why I didn't really read that many physical books this month. I did end up just listening to a lot of Audible books, I'm not gonna lie. So the first book that I finished, I actually read a lot of books this month, but I only finished 8. So, you know, there's something there, but I have like so many that I'm like in the middle of or trying to finish or need to finish. But we'll get to those at the end of the video. The first book that I finished this month was actually the Paris Hilton memoir called Paris. I finished this, I think it was January 1st that I actually officially finished, so I did start right at the end of December. And you know what, it was a lot better than I expected. As a book itself, I rated it 3-star. I mean, I'm not one to say, oh, I'm not going to rate a memoir. I think you can absolutely rate memoirs because, you know, they are books, they're written in a certain way, and whether they're interesting or not, you can have an opinion about it. So I actually found her story to be interesting. I did know a little bit about what happened to her, but not everything. And I like that she narrated it. I always say this, I like to hear the person narrate their own story or memoir because you can just hear it in the tone, the way that they speak certain scenes. Her voice is a little bit annoying. It's not the, it was a little bit like listening to, I mean, Britney Spears didn't narrate her whole book, but she narrated like a little tiny portion of it. And yeah, it's a little bit like grating on the ears. But once you get past that, like I said, I thought it was interesting. You do learn a little bit about, you know, what she went through when she was really young and really growing up in the Hilton family, how it was very strict for her, and also how she has basically created this persona to protect herself. Like this Paris Hilton persona is really not who she truly is inside, but sadly it is who she portrays, who everyone knows, that is who I thought that she was growing up. And she talks, you know, she touches on like the media and paparazzi and everything. I will say there are parts of the book where she still sounds like an airhead. I'm just gonna put it out there. I know that she's not, but she does have that airhead about her in some of the things that she spoke about. So I did give it a 3-star. It wasn't my favorite memoir that I've listened to, but I still enjoyed it and it certainly wasn't terrible. So if you are interested to see what she has to say, then I would recommend it. All right, and then I saw that they had the whole set of Jane Austen's work on Audible for free. It was like a production, the Audible production of all of her novels. And I have seen so many of the adaptations of all of her novels, but I don't think I've really read any of her books. So I decided, because I had nothing else to do, that I was going to listen and start listening to some of the classics, right? So I did actually listen to a lot of classics this month compared to previous months. I mean, more than any other month, because I didn't listen to classics any other month or read any of classics. So the first one, I just went in the order that the actual audio book is presented on Audible, where they just have it all in one and you just literally just listen to the whole thing. So the first one is Sense and Sensibility, and this is by far the worst that I've listened to, and I've listened to a few more now in that collection. I did not realize this was such a dull book. You know, I've heard of Sensibility. I think there's been an adaptation about it. I think I've seen it or something. I don't recall ever trying to read this. I think if I did at any point, I would have put the book down. It was quite a chore to listen to. I did give it a 2-star. I did. It gets better from here though, but I did give it a 2-star because it was just so dreary and just all about these two sisters and, you know, finding a man. And it wasn't like Pride and Prejudice. Like I'm very familiar with Pride and Prejudice, so that's like one of her most popular works in terms of adaptations as well. So it had so many movies and TV shows and whatnot, so I'm very familiar with that one. where you do have multiple sisters as well. It's kind of the same thing where, you know, there's this man that they love, or they think they love, and they're going to marry, but they're betrayed, and, you know, or but it's not what they think. Sense and Sensibility just didn't have really anything about it. I didn't like it at all. I get that one is sensible and one is more about feeling and stuff, so, you know, it's just, but for me it wasn't enjoyable. I think a lot of people love this book, and a lot of people probably feel the same way about it that I do. So I didn't really enjoy it. I found it really long too for what it was. I just feel like it went on and on and on about the same thing in each chapter. So yeah, I gave it a 2-star. So I was really worried about going into Pride and Prejudice. I did listen to Pride and Prejudice right after that too. This one, however, I gave it a 4-star. I thought it was really well written. I mean, I think all her books are decently well written. I wouldn't say the Sense and Sensibility one for me personally is, but it is a classic. It's just not for me. But Pride and Prejudice has like character, like you can actually feel the characters on the page. There's a little bit more like conflict as well, and it's not silliness. I mean, it's still a little silly. It is still a little silly. It's still about finding a man and being proposed to and all that stuff. It all kind of is around the same thing, but I did really thoroughly enjoy listening to this one. And I knew the story pretty well, so, you know, I was just, you know, listening to it, enjoying it, and I gave it a 4-star. Not like amazing, I didn't give it 5 stars. I do think there's parts of the book that were kind of drawn out a little bit too much too, and maybe I'm just not a classic person. But yeah, this one I gave 4 stars, so I did enjoy it. Okay, next up on the list is a book that I did DNF, but I DNF'd around like the 30% mark. And it is a very long book. So I did mark it as somewhat read, and I did rank it. I gave it a 3-star because I do think that it doesn't deserve for me to give it anything lower. But, and what I read was a 3-star worthy. I think I did like some aspect of what the book was trying to do, and it is The Bee Sting by Paul Murray, which, you know, was a Booker Prize nominee, and a lot of people have praised this book. A lot of people love this book. It's like 700 pages, over 700 pages, and it's just literary fiction or like contemporary fiction, and about this family. So basically it follows different, I guess, POVs from the family. I listened all the way up until you get to the mother's POV. So it is a family of 4. You have a daughter and a son, and a wife and a husband, and basically straight away you kind of find out the husband is, you know, making less money. He's really struggling. He has to close down his garage and stuff. So they basically have like terrible money issues, and that's like the overall arching lingering dread of kind of what you read. And you start off with in the teenage daughter's POV, where, you know, it's kind of more of that part of the book was like coming of age story, where she's in her last year of school before she goes to university, and, you know, she's just messing around, having fun with her best friend, dealing with that sort of friendship where she's not sure if her best friend is her best friend at times, and then also, you know, just drinking and hanging out and maybe not doing so well in school where she actually needs to be. So there's that. So that kind of is how the book presents itself at the start, and I was like, okay, fine. I mean, I can listen to this, but I'm not really sure where this is going. And then in the next part, you actually are in the younger brother's mind, and he is probably about 14 years old, 13, maybe 12. I'm not entirely sure, just young teens, and he is massively like terrified of being beaten up by this bully, because, you know, he basically says that his dad owes him money. So his whole POV is him trying to find 100 euros or 150 euros and trying to figure out how to do that. He's selling all his stuff. He can't talk to his parents because his parents are pretty absent-minded. They're not very they don't really notice what's going on with their kids all that much. And all the while, he also has a horrible like best friend that he hangs out with, but he also talks to someone online which he's never met, which I feel like there is something sinister there, but I haven't read the full book, so I don't know. So there's that whole thing that's going on. And then once I got to the mother's POV, which is around the 30% mark, I just switched off. I did not care for it at all. First of all, I didn't like her as a character anyway, just from what was spoken about her in the previous parts, and she's not presented in the best way. I don't think you're supposed to like her. That was fine in itself, but then it went into the backstory of her life, and I just couldn't listen. I couldn't bear to listen. I just thought it got really, really boring. And you know, it's a book that I have been thinking about in the last week, actually, and I read this like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. So suddenly I am kind of thinking about it, so I might listen to it again or just pick back up and maybe get through it, because it might be a book that I enjoy. That's why I gave it a 3-star. I didn't give it like a really low rating, but it was just tricky. It was really tricky, and that part of the book just really, I turned off and I couldn't listen to it. So it's a DNF, DNF for now. I did mark like hard DNF. I like basically was not going to go back to it. But because I have been kind of thinking about it the last week, just randomly, it's come into my thoughts. There must be something about the story, because I feel like there's something bad happens in this story. And I don't know, I feel like I might be a little bit curious, because I invested 30% of a 700-page book. You know, yeah, it's still quite a lot, considering the book is so huge. I think I was thrown off by how big the book is too. But anyway, that one I read and I didn't finish. All right, moving on, we have another Audible book. This one was free as well. I didn't even use a credit for this one. I used a credit for the Bee Sting. I actually bought that one. But this next one I did not buy. I just thought, let's try it. It's like one of these Audible originals or something. And it's called The Nice Guy by Sarah A. Dentzel. I think there's 2 authors actually, but this is the one that's popping up on Goodreads. This was very easy to listen to. Didn't take me very long to get through this book at all. I think after the Bee Sting, I just wanted to listen to something that wasn't atrocious, or I was just able to listen to and not have to think too much. So it's just one of these typical thrillers. A woman meets this guy, he's very, very charming, and you know, it's called Mr. Nice Guy or The Nice Guy, but he doesn't turn out to be such a nice guy. I would say that had I known what happens in this book, I definitely wouldn't have read it. Even knowing, I went into this thinking it wasn't going to be a good book, but I just wanted to, I was kind of entering my reading slump, which is kind of what took over in January anyway. I had a massive reading slump, which I'm still trying to get out of. I'm trying to swim from under that. But yeah, this one, I just thought, oh, let me just listen to this. I didn't expect much from it, and I didn't get much from it, but there are certain things in the book that I definitely, like, they're triggers for me, and I'm realizing now that they're triggers for me that I don't want to read about pregnancies. I don't want to read about women having children and that not being a safe space, in other words. So I'm realizing that that's a trigger for me, and you know, that happens in the book, and I didn't like that. So I did give it a 2 out of 5. It also was absolutely ridiculous at the end. It was just beyond stupid what happens. But you know what, it was okay. It was all right. And then I only actually read finished one physical book this month, which is Hooked by Emily McIntyre. And this is supposed to be a reimagining of Peter Pan, or loosely based off of the fairy tale story, and a lot of the characters have the same names and everything, and you follow Hook, James, he is your main male love interest, and Wendy is there, and she's the innocent girl, and it's like this is kind of like a mafia dark romance. It's so silly though. It is so silly. I gave it a 2-star. I talk about it. I do have a reading blog. I do talk about it a little bit in that one, but yeah, I don't want to spoil anything about this, but there is something like that you find out at the end, and I was like, ew, what? So I'm I'm probably not going to pick up any more of Emily McIntyre's other books in this series, or just in general. I tried it to try it, but I just don't think dark romance books are for me. Or, you know, I can read them. Like, I read this in one night. It was so easy to read. It's like a almost 400 pages. I read it in one sitting because it was just so easy to read. It reminded me of Colleen Hoover, where I've only read one of her books, but that also was a book that I read in one sitting because it was very, very easy to read. That doesn't mean it's a good book. Like, it just means you can read it without really using your brain. I think that's the problem here. But yeah, I gave it 2 stars. I thought it was silly. I'm not gonna say no to dark romances, but I have yet to really find any that have been good or intriguing. I haven't read that many, but if you can recommend them. But yeah, it wasn't for me. I think it was just a little too sick and disgusting at times, and didn't really like Hook. I thought he was he put me off. I'm not gonna lie, it was just a little bit icky in parts. So yeah. All right, and then after that one, I went back to my audiobooks. I listened to Mansfield Park, and let me tell you, I had no idea that I was gonna like this as much as I did. I listened to this in one day. I was cleaning my house. We did a massive reorganization of the kitchen, and basically put my headphones on and I listened to it the whole day. And I really enjoyed this book. I've seen the movie, and I don't remember the movie being all that interesting. I watched the movie when I was young, so maybe it is, but I didn't like it. I don't remember liking it, and I've never read the book. So I had no expectations of liking this book. And I liked this book. I thought it was so good. And I actually like it better than Pride and Prejudice, which I thought would be probably the only book that I actually really like. So I don't know. I mean, I really enjoy this. I don't know why. I think her character was really nice to listen to because she wasn't obnoxious. She wasn't this rude girl. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's bad of me because a lot of the other, like, Jane Austen characters are like more of that feminist vibe, and I don't think this was it. But I also just enjoyed listening to the story in general. I really just got into it, and I did like the love story. I thought it made sense, and you know, you kind of know it's going to be there right at the beginning of the book, and the whole way through the book, you know, you're listening. I don't know, I like this book. I can't really explain it. So I ended up giving it a 4.5. I think it's worth 4.5. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads because I didn't want to bump it up to a 5-star. I don't think it's a 5-star for me, but on my sort of tracking, it's a 4.5. So I thought that was good. All right, and then the last book is a surprise to me. Didn't expect to even read this month, but I decided to start listening to it. Again, another Audible book. I have so many books and I'm not wanting to read any of them, but I decided to listen to Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft, and oh my gosh, I didn't think I was gonna like this. The reason that I wanted to read this was because I'd heard bad things about it. As silly as that sounds. But this was a really fun read, and I definitely want to read the rest of the story. I really do. I've ended up giving this a 4-star. I think at first when I was listening to it, I really didn't know what the book was trying to do. And then I think when I got to like 30% in, it kind of dawned on me what this book was doing. And then I started to really enjoy it because it really isn't for me, I cannot take this book seriously. I went into it thinking, okay, it's going to be this type of story. You know, he goes on honeymoon with his wife, and then he loses his wife, and he's trying to figure out what's happened to her. So I thought it was going to be a little bit more of like a mystery, and like sinister, dark things happen. So basically, Senlin goes to the Tower of Babel, and yeah, madness happens. Basically, there's so much crazy stuff happens in this story. Oh my goodness, I would need a whole different video to explain this book. It deserves its own unique video. So if you're interested in that, let me know and I'll do it. But otherwise, this was such a fun read. Now I can see why people didn't like it because it is long-winded. It does go on and on and on and on and on about certain things, but that's how the character is. The character is this, I wouldn't say dorky, but he's just this educated, upper class. I mean, he thinks highly of himself, headmaster. He marries this younger woman. He wants to take her to the Tower of Babel. I would assume to not only for himself, but also to impress her, because that is how he is. In my mind, he is quite, you know, he likes the finer things in life, or he thinks of himself as more of a, you know, a little bit better than other people. And so he goes through the Tower of Babel expecting it to be full of culture and dignified people, other tourists on holiday, and just be with people of his own caliber. And it is anything but. It is absolutely this whole huge fantasy world where, as a reader, you're learning about it as Senlin learns about it too. And honestly, at first, I didn't know what was going on. It was like, it was so confusing. You know, but again, I did a whole video to talk about it because it was so fascinating and fun. And actually, there were moments in the book where I actually was laughing because it was funny. There were funny moments with the madness, and there is some like sinister stuff that happens for sure. And you know, it's full of thieves and murderers and horrible, nasty liars and stuff. And you just have this little, you know, headmaster guy who's trying to be dignified, and it was a fun read. It really was. But yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I didn't really want to give it too much else because I wanted to see what the rest of the books are like. If they improve on it, then, you know, they can be a little bit better. I didn't want to just give it, you know, higher than 4 straight away, because I think there were moments of it where I did find myself maybe glazing over a little bit. I was listening to it, and had I had the book, I might have probably skim read a few paragraphs. I'm not gonna lie, because it is long-winded. It is a long-winded written book, but I think if you appreciate what the book is trying to do, then it's not so bad. But yeah, I haven't explained it because I don't want to explain it without I can't without actually like taking the whole video. So when I read that one, and that was a real nice surprise, and I'm glad that I decided to read it because, you know, I purposely read it thinking, hang on a minute, this girl doesn't like this book, but maybe I'll like it, and I did end up liking it. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out my taste, and that was a really nice thing to see that I actually did enjoy it. It's super weird though. It was a weird book. Okay, really quickly, this part of the video, I'll just go through all of the books that I'm currently reading because there is quite a lot here, and a lot of them you'll be familiar with because I do speak about them every video. But I definitely need to finish these books this month. I need to. So the first one, which I'm close to finishing, is Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness, yeah. And I'm on page 482. So I've literally only got like 100 pages left. No, 200 pages left. Why does Goodreads say it's got less pages? I don't know, maybe it's just the print is different. I got like 200 pages left on this book. So that's fun. And yeah, it's just basically Twilight with witches and vampires. I at first was like, I don't think this is like Twilight, but I can see why people saying it is like Twilight, and it is. And you know what? I think I would have enjoyed the book more had I fallen for the romance a little bit more, but I don't think that I think the romance was a little bit too much insta love, and there wasn't enough tension in this book. So obviously I'm not gonna like go through it because I haven't read the full book, but that's kind of my vibe. I feel like I'm just gonna give it a 3. And then I've also been reading In at the Deep End by Kate Davis. This is actually a newer book that I just got in England, and I decided to pick it up a few days ago, and I'm reading this. I did mention it a little bit in a vlog recently. It's okay. I mean, I'm on page 126. I have read some reviews that there's like issues with consent in this book though, so I'm not at that point yet, but I think there might be some questionable things that happened in this book. It actually is a coming out story, which I had no idea about. So it's about this girl called Julia, and she has a really like terrible experience with a guy. She's like, I'm going off men altogether. She hooks up with a girl, and she's like, right, I'm a lesbian now. And it's just all about her like going into this world, this whole new world, and I don't know, it's a bit silly, but you know, for now it's been kind of lighthearted and easy to read, so that's why I'm reading it, because I'm trying to get out of a reading slump. A couple other books that I'm kind of in, but I'm not like actually actively reading right at this moment, but I do need to read, is Empire Storms by Sarah J Maas. This is the 6th book in the Throne of Glass series, and I'm only on page 61. So yeah, I'm there. And then I also have House of the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune, and I have not picked this up in like a month. I don't know if I should DNF this book. I don't know. I actually really was enjoying reading it. I just haven't gone back to it. So it might just be a DNF for now, and I'll get back to it when I really feel like it. Something else that I wanted to read, but I didn't end up reading this month, was Bunny by Mona Awad. A lot of people hate this book. A lot of people love it. I wanted to find out if I'm one or the other, and yeah, I didn't actually end up reading it. So that is kind of like my reading recap for this month. I've been in a terrible slump, as I've mentioned multiple times, and I have a video all about that. So yeah, but anyway, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.